Going back to my interview, I had on Mike Benz. We did an in-studio interview. I had to go back and revisit it because some of the stuff that Mike Benz was talking about, I mean, first of all, he's been ahead of the curve on this by a long shot, but it always has been. It always has been what we're now revealing it to be. And now it's just like some people are learning it for the first time and it feels new. But this is from our interview a while back. Let me pull this up. It's a 3-minute and I'll pause and then we're going to run some highlights in a second.
National development.
So it's not U.S. help, it's U.S.
Right.
Agency for International Development, which
Right.
sounds very much like a philanthropic governmental organization which participates in the economic rape of foreign nations.
Well, what they leave unsaid is, what are you developing? They're developing assets. They're developing
Assets meaning what?
Assets, instruments of statecraft to be deployed either by the State Department, the Defense Department, or the CIA. That is all they do. It's the Agency for International Development of Assets. And because it's a general aid pool, you don't know, when you see USAID, you don't know which one of those three it's going towards. You don't know if it's an overt diplomatic declared mission of the State Department, i.e. the State Department has formally declared that we are going to reconstruct the economy of Ukraine. And so USAID money will help different regional pockets that need economic development there. So they will fund institutions that will then control those flow of funds, and therefore effectively the soft politics of the region.
Soft politics, just so everybody appreciates, is propaganda. Mike Benz is talking about there, and you can appreciate it in retrospect now when you just find out what USAID has been funding. The one that I found that was, I say hilarious in a tragic sense, and I'm just want to make sure that I've got my I's dotted and T's crossed. You know what I'm getting at. The irony about this is that the Biden regime, they've been using it to fund literal propaganda coming from news outlets. They've been using it to fund I'm going to use the word literally in the literal sense, to literally fund the literal invasion of America via NGOs. There's one in particular that came up when I was discussing with Michael Yon about the invasion from the southern border. And one aid society in particular, particularly notorious, HIAS, which is the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society organization, which, the buzzwords went from illegal aliens to undocumented migrants, climate refugees. I don't know if they still use that one or if that one's good. Then it just became everyone who's crossing the border illegally is an asylum seeker. All of them. So you got the HIAS, which is the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and you got to give aid to asylum seekers. All they have to do is come here and say asylum, and then there's a whole new set of laws that come in, even though they're by no means asylum seekers. Oh, but they're fleeing environmental crises or war. Ironically enough, if you buy into either of those two, war and economic crises that were probably facilitated by the policy of the very country into which they're fleeing, which creates the responsibility to take them, a la Angela Merkel in Germany and the Syrian refugees. And so you just go look it up. And it's all there for you to see. You just didn't know where to look or what to look for. This is from the HIAS's own website. Currently, the Hebrew Immigrant HIAS main sources of revenue to support its mission are grants from the U.S. government, the United Nations High Commission, refugees, yada, yada, and allied agencies, contributions from individuals, yada, okay, and more. All right, interesting. AI overview. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society receives grants from the U.S. government, foundations, and other organizations. Some of the grants, HIAS, include State Department grants. And now that you understand the words, where you have the USAID, which is a separate budget, but of the same amount as the State Department, you start to understand the corporate shell game that they're playing. But then you go to HIAS's own website, the emergency, and I put the archived link just in case they decide to go scrub this. The Emergency Response Fund. The Emergency Response Fund is managed by the Emergency Department and allows for quick, flexible, unrestricted funding that can be used during emergencies. The fund was initially approved by HIAS Board of Directors in 2018. Since that time, what's it called? The ED, erectile dysfunction? No, the Emergency Department has utilized the funds for establishing a foundation for emergency response capacities during times of displacement and actively responding for a variety of contexts, including critical emergency medical needs assessments, as well as urgent basic needs for individuals and communities affected by emergencies. Okay. Funding emergencies logistics on Honduras-Guatemala border, September 2021. In response to a request from a donor coalition led by USAID, the Emergency Department supported logistics and transport to a rapidly deteriorating situation on the Guatemalan-Honduras border involving return of migrants associated with Title 42. ED, it's there. Oh, by the way, 2018? Let me see something here. When was Mayorkas a board member of HIAS? You remember this? Alejandro Mayorkas served as on the board of directors for the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society until he resigned in December 2020. This was the week before President Biden nominated him to be United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Can you understand the insidious level of incestuous corruption? Mayorkas was on the board of the Hebrew Aid Society, which is receiving funds from the government to facilitate the wholesale invasion of America via illegal immigration coming from the southern border, the Darien Gap, et cetera, et cetera. He's on the board of an organization funded with disclosed or concealed tax dollars. He resigns the week before he gets appointed to be the director of Homeland Security. I forget the title now, where he can be at the helm of facilitating the continued illegal invasion of America of and by illegal immigrants, under the pretext that they all become asylum seekers now, funded by your own tax dollars. Like, you're buying the gas that the police department is dousing on your house as it burns. So that is out there. And when you fight the corruption, the corruption fights back. Listen to this. They are in an absolute panic to cover up, conceal, misrepresent, do everything they can, which is going to get a little bit harder because they're losing the funds to fund that propaganda via USAID. We'll get to that one in a second when we talk about Politico and the $10 million damn near that they got in 2023 under the Biden regime. Here, let's see what Senator Andy Kim, where is he from? New Hampshire? New Jersey, sorry. Signed AK. I thought for a second he was like a Second Amendment absolutist, but no, it's just Andy Kim. Let's hear what he has to say. Stop it. Hey, Andy, wait. Okay, now go.
This is not about charity. I don't want the American people to think this is just about charity, that this is $1 away from our help for our own communities. This is about us in this very dangerous very dangerous global environment right now, the most dangerous environment I've ever seen during my lifetime. We deserve to have every tool at our disposal. And we've always had a foreign policy based upon defense, diplomacy, and development. That is something that Ronald Reagan himself was a big supporter of, which is why USAID is in the Reagan building here in DC, is because it was a bipartisan understanding about having those tools. And we're now seeing that come to an end.
Oh, yes, you are.
This is not about charity. I don't want the American people to think this is just about charity, that this is $1 away from our...
Bipartisan, basically, we're talking about the swamp right now. Bipartisan. And sometimes when things are totally partisan, there's a problem. Sometimes when things are totally unanimous, there's also a problem. And it needs to be analyzed on a piece-by-piece basis, or on a piecemeal basis, I should say. Yeah. First of all, it might have been unanimous at one point in time, or bipartisan at one point in time. That was until it became weaponized against one of the parties. That was until potentially both parties were dipping their hands into that slush fund a little bit too deep. The amazing talking point that you're hearing is that it's $50 billion, but it's only 1% of the U.S. budget or something along those lines. Let me hear what this guy has to say. Listen to this.
Foreign assistance is about 1% of our entire federal budget. And maybe before coming after USAID, Republicans should look at all the billions and billions of dollars in tax breaks and subsidies that they give to oligarchs like Elon Musk.
No.
You want to save some money? Well, let's start there. And hey, while we're at it, hey, Elon, pay your fair share of taxes. What is happening right now?
Oh, by the way, do you notice who's in the bat right there? You notice that little Raskin right here? Oh, yeah. Ilhan Omar, we're going to get to her in a second.
Across the government is that an unelected billionaire is trying to gut the government so he can give other billionaires a tax break.
Just drop the
our
words.
Answer is hell no.
Say the words. Billionaire, oligarch, unelected. I think it was, Liberty Podcast. Clint. Oh, I forget. For goodness sake. First of all, Elon Musk he's not elected, but to say that he was unelected is wrong. Everyone who voted for Trump voted for the coalition. You know who was unelected? These federal employees who are sucking at the teat of the taxpayer dollar. You know who's unelected and taking your tax dollars? Every recipient of USAID, but it's only 1%. It's a drop in the bucket, but we're freaking out that you're taking it away. Wonder why. And I just have to bring this one up because just listen to the way Ilhan Omar says the word power. Listen, power, the word in particular. And I think she emphasizes it because she has such a lust for it. Listen to this.
It is really, really a sad day in America. We are witnessing a constitutional crisis. We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are.
It's funny. We talked about it. We made up the lie, and here we are pursuing it. Color me shocked, Ilhan. Let's hear you say the word power.
This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like. When you gut the Constitution and you install yourself as the sole power.
Power. Listen to the emphasis.
Power. That is power.
In the longer clip, she says it 4 times, and she says it with the same power. This is what dictatorship looks like. 76 million votes after an election. That's what dictatorship looks like. You're an idiot, Elon. You're an absolute buffoon. But the verbal lust that she has for the word power, it comes through because that's what she wants, and that's what they refuse to relinquish.